Hi, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another program of Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. So here we are in the, this is our first post-election evening, so congratulations to Joyce Craig on winning the mayoral election, and commiserations to Mayor Gatzis on losing, and then to all the people who ran, whether they won or not. I think they deserve our gratitude for running. For those who won, congratulations, and I hope that this is the first day of the next term for you, or a new term if you're starting. And of course, to be precise, I don't know what the date is that people will, when the new boards will sit. Usually it'll be like the end of the first week of January. So the existing boards, there was a school board meeting last night, which I wasn't able to make. But we'll see. And then December, often there may be one school board meeting for one of the boards in December. But it's interesting how things went down. We'll visit that. We'll visit that in a second. I wanted to do something that I haven't done for a while, just because we're heading into Thanksgiving and to that time of the year, and where these weeks are important learning weeks for kids, or sort of in the meat of the year again, and between interruptions. Last week. Great for the kids, but sadly we had 2 days in the city of Manchester, Tuesday and then Friday for Veterans Day, and so it was a 3-day week, and we have a full week this week, and then next week schools will be closed on Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving. So as I watch my kids grow older and mature in the school system, it becomes clear to me this whole idea about time in front of teachers, or time on task, or time learning. Time is the great scarce resource, and I like it when I hear Superintendent Bulgan Vargas talk about this idea that we need to get kids more and more educational time. And so when I look at that, then from a week by week point of view, I love it from a parent point of view, having kids at home and etc. But then there are so few weeks really. If you take away in the school year, if you take away those weeks that are sort of, you come back after the summer recess or summer vacation, and there are some weeks spent in recatching up, relearning some stuff. Those first weeks of September, everything's sort of tentative. Kids are in new classes with new teachers, learning new schedules, and so only the best of teachers can really get running and get, in the early weeks of September. And so no sooner you into that, and you start having vacation times and different times. So let me just turn my phone off here for a minute. So no sooner you into that, but then other holidays start coming up, and like in this particular season, we had the breaks for elections last week, and then next week we'll have Thanksgiving, and before you know it, you come back after Thanksgiving, you're into the first week of December, and the kids really have maybe 2 good weeks, because that third week of December, kids are distracted, younger kids, it's and older kids too, of course. There are vacation parties, there's Santa Claus, there's gifts to be bought, there's all that stuff. So it's hard to have kids concentrated on education at those times. So when I talk to my kids, I try to identify. It's not like I have red lines drawn in the calendar for which weeks are sort of optimum learning weeks, but the weeks with no interruption and no event happening, I say to them, like I did yesterday morning, on Monday morning, I said, when I was talking to my kids before they went off to school, I'm like, hey, guys, this is a big week. This is one of those working weeks when you get some of the heavy lifting done. So this is sort of Jim's view. I think it's important that kids that as parents we kind of create expectation for kids, and not that school becomes this monotone. It's always the same thing, because it's not. Just like monotone teachers. I was talking to a kid recently, and he reminded me of those days in school where you had some monotone teacher who was totally uninteresting. Just not, either they were having a bad day, or else they were just not very good teachers. But I remember being in school, which is now a long time ago, and a couple of teachers, and just by the end of their class you were ready to, just trying to keep your eyes open, and your head kept dropping, you're like, oh my God. And that says something about me as a student, but I think it said a lot more about the teachers, because if you're standing there talking to a class and the kids are head bobbing, then you're probably not doing a great job as a teacher. So back to this idea about presenting to kids, I think it's important to sort of, talk about these breaking the year up into its constituent parts, and then breaking the months up into, you're either at the start, there's always an opportunity at the start of any month to say to a kid, all right, so, you did a great job in October, but here we are, it's November, let's see if we can do a little bit better in November. Or conversely, look, October was terrible. I know you had that terrible test you did that you didn't do well on, and whoever's fault it was, it doesn't matter. Let's move on. So it's a new month, new day. The tabula rasa. Let's drive forward, and I think kids respond to that, because otherwise it's just mundane. Another day, it's drudgery. Oh, it's another day getting ready, packing your lunch or whatever, putting it in a backpack, heading off to school. How many more days left, and the worst thing of all would be to get into this. It's worse for all of us, really, I think, but even at work. But people who get into the sort of Monday through, Monday, and they try to get to, let's try and eke out an existence and scrape through to Friday so we can take a deep breath for the weekend. And that's a lousy way to go through life. It's not a great way to go through work. You're probably in the wrong job if that's what you're doing. And there have been times when, if you're lucky enough to have a job you enjoy, then God bless you, because that's not it's not always the case. But for kids, otherwise they get to, this drudgery thing happens, and then they get to Friday night, and then they just don't want to touch anything from Friday night through to Sunday. So there's no educating or learning goes on. They're not going to grab a school book, because they, their attitude is, I'll do that Monday, and then I'll try and fight my way through to Friday night. So I try to break that up by being a little episodic, having episodes. And as I described earlier, there are times in the year when it's harder work and times when it's not so work. And I always try to point out to them sort of where the light at the end of the tunnel is, so if I was talking to my kids tonight, and I hope they're home doing their homework, but if they were listening to this, I'd be saying, like I said to them yesterday morning, guys, this is a work week. Let's get the work done. This is a heavy lifting week, because then next week you just go to school Monday, Tuesday. Let's be fair. Wednesday is a gimme, right? Because nobody's doing that much on Wednesday. You kind of, everybody's got one eye on the Thanksgiving turkey, and so really. And before you know it, you're in December, and then off into Christmas. So that's one thought. I think parents being involved, talking to their kids, is very important, and helping them to not look upon education generally and their school and schoolwork and all of that as one big, never-ending lump of thing that's not going to stop. It can't be overcome or surmounted, etc., because it's just this big mountain. And for many kids, it is a big mountain. The kids who are in school and engaged and loving it, and are loving it all the time and have no issues, are a small minority. Even the good kids, they need your assistance from time to time and your encouragement, etc. And that's something that parents can do without having to go into a school, without having to sit next to the books, without having to take the next step. I think simply by constantly encouraging the idea of education, reinforcing the need for education, the rewards of education, the joy of knowing things. I'm driving down the road with my kids, and even when they were little and they'd recognize something or they'd see something, I always tried to, not that I was evangelical about it, that I was constantly at it, but I often would say, oh yeah, see that, remember you learned about that last year, or you learned about that before. So I'm reminded as I talk about that about the controversy with a tiny C that happened on social media this summer, at least within my view. Where there were parents arguing about the issue of summer reading, and first of all, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. God bless that people live whatever way they want, uh, the idea of tying a parent had this idea that a reading requirement was imposed upon their children for the summer, and that this was the school sort of reaching into their private time, a time for relaxation and enjoyment, and being at peace with oneself and having fun and playing in the sandbox. And here was this sort of school system reaching in and trying to force kids to do reading or something. And it doesn't bear scrutiny because nobody, there's no malevolent hand here reaching in trying to force kids to do some drudgery that they hate to do. It should be the objective of every parent to encourage their kids to learn. And since we're having, to compliment Dr. Vargas twice in 10 minutes, he came into the school district, and one of the first things he talked about, besides time on task and time in front of a teacher, was the idea of having every kid in the Manchester School District, his ambition was to see that every one of them had a library card. Because everybody knows, or every educator knows, that the biggest, greatest gift that any kid can get is the gift of liking to read and learning to love reading. The subject matter, it could be any, I don't care if it's comic books in the end. Some people are into science fiction literature, some people are into spiritualism, some people are into, biography and whatever it may be. Find your joy. And get some joy for reading, because especially today with the advent of digital media and social media and iPads and iPhones and iPods and everything else, the great joy of sitting down with a book. And okay, so I'm a little old-fashioned. I have a couple of e-readers myself that I use for convenience from time to time, but I'm old enough to like the touch, feel, and smell of an actual book, and so. The single best thing a parent can do for a kid is encourage them to read. So I really didn't have a lot of sympathy for it, and I'm sorry to say that. The people who were arguing against the school reading requirement, which in the end is not like go to the library and read the whole shelf. It was, in the case of high school kids, 3 books or 2 books, depending on your level, and the difficulty of the books depended on the level of English you were going to take. And in the end, if you don't read them, fine, you didn't read them. You'll just be behind in September. So I encourage kids to read. I think it's a very important skill, and it's going to be hard to be successful in any career if you're not reading, because even after you graduate, you will still be reading. Even if it's online, you're reading online journals. You're keeping up to date with your profession. People in the medical field and other businesses have got their continuing ed to do every so many years, or every year perhaps they have a CEU requirement, a continuing education requirement. So it's a lifetime learning thing. I wanted to when I get to that mode to talk about helping kids, etc. I would also take this time to talk about the Aspen portal. And it's been a while since I've mentioned that. And I was at a PTO meeting last week, and I was surprised that every time this issue of the Aspen system comes up, there are people in the room who don't know about it. And considering it's a PTO meeting, and by definition, the people at the PTO meeting are parents who cannot be accused of not caring, right? So the very fact that they've chosen to go out of their nice warm house, especially this time of the year, go out of their nice warm house and go to a PTO meeting on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night means that they're engaged and interested and want to do right by their kids. And so when those people don't know really about Aspen, then obviously I think the school district probably needs to do a better job of explaining Aspen and what it is. And for those of you, if you don't know by now, Aspen is the online portal that parents can use to access their kids' academics. And not just academics, but they can see if they've been tardy or if they've been absent or missed a day. And this probably won't matter so much if your kid's in first, second, or third grade, because they're unlikely to miss a day without you knowing it. But if you had a kid who was dodging class or something, or was going to school late or whatever, you'd see that. But thankfully, I haven't had that issue. But I do keep an eye on the kids' academics, because you can go in and you can see what homework they've gotten, how what they're how they've done in their tests, or but that I don't mean like tests as in like statewide tests, right? I just mean just in the class when a teacher does an exam on something, end of chapter stuff and things like that. But you'll see how they do. So you get a blow by blow, day by day idea of what's going on. We have a caller here. Let me see if we can grab them. Hi caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just wondering if you know anything about last evening's vote on the hockey coach, and I'll hang up and listen.
Well, you. Thank you. You won't have to listen for very long, because I do not know anything about. As I said at the top of the program, I missed last evening's meeting, and I actually was over in New York today. I ended up having to go to. It's too long a story, but I was going over to the to Bennington for something, and I ended up going to New York for a quick meeting. So I drove back here hot foot, arrived in the studio, and didn't have a time to review last night's meeting. So I presume that there's some story to a hockey coach being chosen at last night's meeting, but I'm sorry, sir, that I'm not able to respond, because last night's meeting I missed, and so I don't know. But if somebody would like to call in, I'd love to hear from them about the hockey meeting. I'm sure if I went through social media, etc., we might find what's going on there. But anyway, if you'd like to call in, the number here is 640-3091. I'm now intrigued about the hockey coach thing. So if somebody wanted to call in, I'd love to hear that. 640-3091. And if you're watching this on Tuesday night, the 14th, then you're live right now. So again, sorry about that. So back to the Aspen portal. The Aspen portal allows you to go in and see what's going on, and it was a little cumbersome originally on how to get credentials for it. You had to go to the school to get the credentials. I don't know if that's been fixed or not. It was kind of a crazy. You can get credentials through your bank account without having to go to your bank, and so the idea that you had to actually go to the school in order to get credentials as a parent to go on was problematic. But I think it had to do with again, parents and guardians and stepfathers and mothers, and different families that aren't always as sort of simple as two parents and kids. I guess that might be a driver for it. I don't know, but hopefully it's gotten a little better. At one point, you had to go through the school system to change the login and password as well, and I think that's been fixed. So, I'm hopeful that more and more people use it. But I think it's important to know that it's there, and certainly those of you who've got kids in grade school, etc., it's a little bit. Important as they go up through middle school. It becomes very important, because middle schoolers notoriously, they're at that tween stage where they don't share as much as they probably should, and don't share as much as they should. So one way of doing it is to go on Aspen. I just read something on. I'm just getting a little message on my Facebook here. So Dave Ryan was the only applicant for the coaching job. The board rejected him. Central High School may not have a team, from what I hear. Thank you for that message. So I presume that's Dave Ryan. Dave Ryan, the former assistant superintendent. He was the only applicant for the coaching job, but the board rejected him. Unbelievable. Talk about, and I didn't see that, but if that's the case, this is more, one of the reasons why as I understand it, even though he didn't tell me this explicitly, that Dave Ryan left the school district as assistant superintendent and went on to become assistant superintendent elsewhere, was because of personal vendettas and pettiness on the school board, and sort of people objecting to people just based on based on who they are and not on what they actually, what their value was, etc. So my phone is going live here. I try not to bore you with it, but yeah. So there's a couple of things. So that's the story about that. So interesting. What a pity. So back to this. And Aspen, go look at it. The other thing is, sadly, Dr. Vargas's meeting with parents, etc., his coffee with the superintendent was cancelled last week. It was meant to be on Thursday evening at Central, and that on the 9th on Central, and it was cancelled at the last minute. I don't know what the reason for that was, but it was. So the next opportunity to meet with the superintendent will be on December the 13th at 7:30 in the morning at Jewett Street Elementary School, over on Jewett Street. So December the 13th, easy for you to say. I'm challenged by numbers like 13 sometimes, at 7:30 a.m. And then on the following day again at Parkside Middle School over on the west side on December 14th at 4:30 p.m. So if you'd like to grab the superintendent's ear, that would be the time in which to do it. So. Now that we've mentioned coaching, another thing that has happened, and I just want to emphasize again, is this the wonderful accomplishments of our kids at sporting events, etc., over the last couple of weeks. So let me see. We got somebody coming in here. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, is this Phil?
Yeah.
Hi, Phil. How are you doing?
I'm all right. You won't have me for 25 minutes tonight.
No, yeah, okay. All right, good. No, I mean, I'd be happy to do that, but just not here.
Couple quick questions.
Yeah.
Do you still support the superintendent?
Do I? Yes.
All right. And I thought you did.
Yeah.
So let's get out of the weeds, all right?
Okay. So, and again, like, just to be clear on the superintendent, I hear a slight buzzing going on somewhere, and I don't know what it is. I mean, metaphorically speaking, about the superintendent. I've seen nothing from the superintendent that would cause me not to support him thus far. So I'm like, let's see where I'm waiting for the second foot to fall. But so far, I like the fact that he is standing up to people. At least he's his own man. We'll see how far that goes.
Well, I'm just saying, let's look beyond the
bright side.
Looking beyond
this
what?
and the that.
What's that?
If we really want to support him, let's support him with our words. Let's support him with our actions.
Right.
And let's really support him. And then 6 months from now, a year from now, if it doesn't work out, we'll reboot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
But, words are one thing.
Yep.
Actions are another.
Right.
Let's really support the guy.
Yeah, so, and I've supported him. So I don't know where we're going here. I mean,
I'll read between the lines.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty, but
you're a smart guy.
No, I'm obviously not smart enough. I'm having a bad. I was telling people, I was driving all day, so I just got back from a 3-hour drive, and maybe my mind's somewhere out in the Monadnock region or something. But no, I'm a bit. My argument has always been: you hire a good person, you hire the best person you can, and you task them, you agree with them what the goals are and what the measurements are, and then you let them do their job. Yeah. Get out of the way. Let them do their job.
The biggest problem with the superintendent is, right?
What's that?
The people that were on the committee that hired him.
Why is that?
They can't bring the rest of the board around to support them. He could cure cancer, and because Deb and Rich Gerard and the person from 5 and whoever else was on the committee,
right,
were on that committee, so whatever he does doesn't work.
Yeah, and
on a Saturday in May, there'll be a meeting at XYZ building, and the other group will get together and say, yeah, we got to get rid of him.
Yeah,
because he didn't dot this I or cross that T. It's ridiculous.
well, I'm hoping that's
It's very sad. And somebody like you, who's been a voice,
yeah,
could be a real proponent of looking beyond these things and saying, you know what, let's call it what it is.
right,
Let's get all the facts out on the table.
right,
And everybody says, "Oh, let's put politics aside. Oh, I support him."
right,
Well, then do it.
right, and I like.
Maybe those people stumbled upon the right guy. I
Yeah.
don't think they stumbled. I think they did their work and ended up with a good guy.
Right.
But let's give them their due. All right, they stumbled upon the right guy.
Right.
Well, get over it.
Yeah, and my
Let him do his work.
right, and my problem is I don't know who's actually trying to stop him doing his work. Like I haven't seen. Like I'm waiting. The big deal here, for instance, is right. We got this first kind of whatever alignment thing that happened, right? So redistricting needs to happen, and then if I were, that to me should be the first and next thing that Vargas does, and come forward with a proposal for redistricting and make it a moment of truth, my way or the highway. I'm proposing redistricting. You people have been playing with it for 17 years. If you've got some suggestions, I'll listen to them, but otherwise we're going forward in the following way. I'm hoping he does that, and we get that with the new
He's
board.
made some incremental changes. You'd admit that, right?
Yes, I do.
Which is bigger than anyone else has done. He's made some incremental changes with the budget.
Yes.
Get the aldermen to buy into giving him whatever it was, $1 million or $2 million.
Well, again,
So obviously that's his playbook. I'll do it intermittently.
Yeah.
And try and bring people aboard.
Yeah.
My point, and I'm all done with the election's over.
Yeah.
I'm all done with the baloney of, oh yeah, we support him. The
Right.
cards are on the table. Your actions say that you don't support him.
Right.
Whether it's who's going to run the kitchen or who's going to sweep the floor or who's going to fix the roof or what book we're going to buy.
Right.
I can tell you to vote before it happens.
Well, see, I don't.
And really, they're not saying, Dr. Vargas, we're voting against you. They're saying, you were brought here by a committee of 5, and we had no other choice but to approve it, and now it's sour grapes, so we're going to go against you.
Well, I got to tell you.
Call it what it is.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's not
let's
the
move
case.
forward.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that that's not the case, though. I'm hoping that people don't do that. I think that'll become very obvious if that's what was going down. I mean, when I listen to people, my criticism of the board has always been that we're in there micromanaging the administration, and there are some people who want to be, education experts, even though they're public representatives. So
Right. Look, let me interrupt you there for a
Yeah.
second because you made a point.
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of micromanaging
right,
until the pilot of the plane is Deb Livingston. Then you can micromanage all you want because I want to land safely. And now
Yeah.
the people that were against micromanaging,
right,
now we have a pilot with his license, Dr. Vargas, who's flying a plane, and they're micromanaging
right,
after they said they don't like micromanaging.
right. And I'm trying to.
So guess what?
Yeah,
It's all political. And for you, and you're a smart guy, and you're a stand-up guy,
yeah,
look beyond
you.
all that and call a spade a spade. Enough's enough.
yeah.
Give
And
the guy his just due. Let the new board come in. If you support him, show it in your votes, show it in your actions.
right.
And if he's wrong, in his own words, if I'm not doing it, I'll be gone.
Right.
Let him do his job and call it a day.
Right. No, but just
And by the way, and I'm going to throw this in because I know
Yeah.
you know I'm going to say it.
yeah,
Those same people that are against micromanaging and all for the kids and they're all doing this,
yeah.
they're all getting the Cadillac health insurance, buddy. So it doesn't mean a hill or beans.
Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, the other thing, like last night, I didn't see last night's meeting, so I don't know what was on at last night's meeting. We had a call a while ago about the hockey coach thing that seemingly Dave Ryan was proposed, but he was rejected by the board. I don't know why that was the case. So now they don't have a hockey coach, but that's the only thing I heard about from last night's meeting. If there was something else with Dr. Vargas not being asking for something and not getting it, then it'd be news to me.
Forget last night's meeting. I'm talking about watch the meetings.
Yeah.
I'm not focusing on last night.
Right.
Obviously, we all don't know what happened, right?
Right.
Oh, apparently, you didn't. You weren't around, so you didn't see the meeting.
Right.
I mean, I'll tell you how I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It didn't come through the meeting. It came from a phone call I got during the weekend from somebody that told me what was going on, a non-elected official that had some skin in the game and happened to be a very nice gentleman or lady. I won't say who it was.
Are we talking about a hockey coach issue?
And brought me up to date on it.
Is this the
I was like, oh, wow.
Is this the hockey coach issue you're talking about?
Jim,
What?
we all know what everyone's talking about.
I
was at my house. I get a phone call. I took the phone call. I got a plethora of information. I was asked to do some things. I did those things with no problem, trying to resolve a situation. I had no angst against it.
Right.
But I was like, this is stuff I shouldn't even know.
Right. Well,
Why do I know it?
Yeah.
And to that point, if they really supported the superintendent, we could start this dance.
Right.
We don't need to talk around the issues.
I
Just
don't.
support the guy.
Right. I agree, 100%.
If Bobby Orr's the hockey coach or Dave Smith's the hockey coach, that's not the point.
Right.
The point is, if you're going to support the superintendent, support him.
Right.
Period. Give him 6 months. Give him a year. I don't care what you give him.
Right.
But knock off the baloney.
All right. I'm going to have to look at that meeting, see what else is going on.
Say you support them, but you have some pretty close ties to these people. Put them in their place and tell them enough's enough.
I will.
Because it's about kids.
I will.
It's about speech therapy. It's about occupational therapy. It's about reading programs. It's about alternative education. It's about new books. It's about new curriculum.
Right. You're singing my
Enough's
song.
enough.
You're singing my song.
Election's over.
Move on.
Whoever won.
Yep.
Get to work. And by the way, I'll find you $1.5 million. Cancel the insurance.
Right. Right.
So
All right,
cents.
Phil.
It's
Thank
your
you.
Show.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for taking my call.
You're always welcome. Thanks, Phil. So, thanks, Phil. Phil's giving me more credit than I deserve tonight because I'm a little lost about the issue with regard to the superintendent, because I keep on hearing this thing about people not supporting the superintendent. And now I'm going to have my antenna up and I'm going to be watching out for it. It's not like that I haven't seen anything, but I really don't see what some people are claiming to see. I have said, and I'll say it again, that people need to get out of the way and let the administration do their job. And I've been critical always of micromanaging that position. In the end, I've talked about some of the policy issues, and it annoys me when we've had things happen at City Hall where we bring in our best expertise that we pay dearly for as taxpayers. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing with regard to the public health stuff, but Tim Soucy comes before the board and says the public health policy is this is best practice, this is what's done everywhere, this is what we should do. And then we've got 14 private individuals who set themselves up to have conversations on this, and they want to reinvent the wheel in Manchester. And that's why we're not talking about, speech therapy and occupational therapy and kids with needs and books and educational requirements, because we're wrapped up in all these other things. The board needs to start acting like a board, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful without evidence. I'm just hopeful that because we have a new board starting on January, for whatever date it is, first week of January, that they will do exactly that, and there'll be less of the preening and less of the pontificating and etc. And I don't know if this is going to be the case. I'm hopeful that Joyce Craig will do a better job of chairing the meeting. Now, I don't know, because I haven't seen her chair a meeting, so I have no evidence for that. When I say hopeful, I'm not saying I'm hopeful because I know she can do it. I'm just saying I'm hopeful that she will do a better job of chairing the meeting, because Mayor Gatsis was accused of being being intolerant a little, or being a bully or whatever. I think there was some evidence of that. I think he was intimidating to some people. But that's true. But at the same time, sometimes he wasn't half intimidating enough. There are people on the board who take up. You've got 14 members, and you've got 3 of them who take up 80% of the time of the board. And I've said again and again, and I firmly believe that the board meetings should be executive sessions where stuff has been studied and looked at, and people have had a chance to exchange ideas and thinking, and then they come into a board meeting fully prepared to address that which is on the agenda. and then have some debate, make the points that you have, gotten to some concise statement or thought on. Exchange that with your fellow board members, take a vote, and move on. And part of that would be this idea of bringing stuff in at the last minute and bringing stuff in that hasn't been properly vetted or thought about, or throwing questions at people, expecting answers when they haven't been asked and they're not prepared. It allows squishiness and evasiveness on behalf of the administration if they haven't been asked beforehand, because now they're able to say, well, we're looking into that and I didn't know, and let me see. And then on the other side, from an executive point of view, having school board members, coming up with their next deep thought at 11:30 at night time is just not acceptable. So, like I said, without having evidence for it, I'm hoping that looking at the quasi-dysfunctionality of the school board over the last 2 years, that I'm hoping Joyce Craig will be smart enough as mayor to recognise that something has to change on that board. And one of the things that ought to change is what Mr. Phil Sapienza was just saying there, which is to allow the superintendent to do his job, and then let's have a lot of fun on the day that the day comes for throwing rotten eggs and tomatoes at the end of a year or something. And I'm being silly, but there's a date comes when you say, okay, you said you'd get this done in a year. Now let's measure and see how you did. Let's see how your test comes out. And I'm all for holding people's feet to the fire at that time, but the way it is currently is we have people going on and on and on and on at board meetings. The meetings become dysfunctional because they just go on way too long. The other thing that happens is that, and I don't know whether it was by design all the time, and sometimes I worry that it might have been, but people get jaded. They get like meeting fatigue, and by the time it gets to 11 o'clock at night, you've had 4 major decisions to make, and you spend most of the meeting on the first 1.5, and then the decisions 2, 3, and 4 get made like boom, 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 and they're made without any discussion, and it's like we agreed, we're in the voting mode, boom, bang, done, and you're like, how the hell did that happen? So I think from a functional point of view that a better job could be done of chairing the meeting. We'll see if we get that or not. But ultimately, the superintendent should be tasked with doing a job, asked if he's going to be able to do it, have him agree to the goals, and then go through the goals. And I the first thing that I would like to see him do is to tackle the issue of redistricting and go from there and see how we look when that happens. Because as I've said here many times, redistricting is not the panacea that people might expect it to be. It will certainly be helpful. It will allow the easier distribution of the better allocation of resources. So if you've got 100 kids and you divide them equal across 10 schools, you have 10 kids in each school. You have 10 teachers. You put 1 in each school. That's the perfect distribution. The way we have it today is we have 100 kids. We have 20 in one school, 5 in another school. We have 2 teachers with the 20. We've got 1 with the 5, and it becomes so. We're never going to get to any, to some kind of perfection, but we could do a better job of distributing them. But importantly, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a finite number of students, a known number of students, and a known number of teachers, which today is in the state of New Hampshire, we've got the least number of teachers per pupil of any district in the state, 100 out of 161. When we've finished rejigging everything and we've done a perfect redistribution, which I'm all for and want to happen, when the redistricting is finished, there won't be one single extra teacher in the city of Manchester, and we'll still have the highest pupil-teacher ratio, but they'll just be better distributed. And then we'll have to move, when we move to there are challenges in the high schools that we're going to have to talk about equity, about course offerings, and we'll have to talk about distance learning. And someone told me that something was discussed about distance learning last night. I think it has to come down the path from having done redistricting. But the other issue is the whole leveling thing. So leveling becomes it becomes difficult. If you've got a school and you've got 100 kids in second grade, then you say I'll put them in 4 classes of 25 each. In Manchester's case, you might even put them in 3 classes of 40 at one time. But anyway, 4 classes of 25 each. But within that grade, when you have levelling, so when you get to middle school and high school, and in middle school you've got levelling in math, you've got levelling in English, and so now it's not 100 kids, it's 30 kids of level 4, 30 kids of level something else, and so the numbers get skewed, and now it becomes more difficult to do a good distribution of teachers and resources across those kids. And then when you put in special needs and kids who have got special requirements, etc., and you put in ELL kids and all the other pieces, and now your group of 100 kids is no longer this easily dividable group. So even when we get redistricting done, there's still a lot of variables. But I think one of the things that we need to look at as a district is the issue of levelling and how levelling is affecting kids, and I'd like to hear that being discussed. Because there are multiple opinions on it, and people get very hot under the collar about it. But it's an issue that I've turned my mind around on completely over time. But I have good friends who are very much in favour of levelling, and I've got good friends. When I say good friends, I mean good friends who know a lot about education, who are opposed to levelling. So I hear both sides of it, and I'm not an expert in in the area, so I don't know. But I do know that levelling makes makes the distribution more complicated. So I'm hoping we can get redistricting done as another win. I think it'll make it the sale to the board, mayor and alderman becomes easier when you've actually taken some actions. And one of the things that I was at pains to point out this year about Dr. Vargas and the extra $2 million being given so that we could have foreign languages in middle schools and health teachers in middle schools and the SROs brought back and things like that, so we did a good job, I think, of creating a level set of understanding that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen know that the extra $2 million was spent in the way in which it was promised to be spent. What is not understood by them, but which needs to be forced home, is that the extra $2 million wasn't really an extra $2 million. The $165 million, which was proposed as the baseline, was $5 million less than what was needed to retain existing services and staffing. So we eliminated $5 million worth of staffing and services and offerings, and then we put back in $2 million for a separate to add stuff. But there was a net loss of $5 million worth of services, and that is lost on the majority of aldermen, and their eyes glaze over and they don't understand that, and so it becomes very annoying. And I've talked about this again and again about the idea that we eliminated teachers once again in our school district this year, and right across the political spectrum in Manchester, there just is no cognizance taken of that. It doesn't seem to be a problem. We have, if we lose 4 police officers, we lose 4 firefighters, we lose 4 people from public works. Frankly, I don't think we can afford to lose people from any of those departments. But if we did, aldermen are in a state of chassis about it. And it's like, well, we had... And yet we eliminate net 14 teachers out of the school system, and, well, that's okay. That's like they're not real city employees as much as everybody else. And frankly, I just don't get it. I don't understand the worldview. I don't understand how an alderman at large, like Joe Kelly Levasseur or Dan O'Neill, just to look at the at-large people who have their view of the whole city, I don't understand what's in their mind when they look at the city and they're able to say at the end of a budget process, and they do say it, and they say, you know what, the city side, and they almost say our side, we didn't get a penny extra on any extra money that was there went to the school side, and that's how they view it. But when you say to them that actually what you do, whatever way you did it, the fact is you eliminated employees on the public school side, but not on the public sector side, that's something that's sort of lost on them. And we need to there needs to be, I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know if it is, whether to give the school board its own revenue raising authority and have it as an autonomous board like they do in Concord, or whether it should be rolled back up and made the city department, and in that case, the alderman would actually be responsible for. They would sort of see it directly as their child and not a stepchild. But as it exists in Manchester today. The fact that we have the least well-funded school system in the state is lost on most of our aldermen. They simply don't get it. They want to talk about incremental change and let's make the most of what we have. They're not interested in structural change. Now, to Dr. Vargas's thinking about Dr. Vargas. Dr. Vargas is the first senior administrator or person in authority in the city of Manchester who has talked about the fact that there are structural deficits and structural problems with our budget. That it's, in other words, it's fundamentally flawed. It's not something that can be fixed by just tipping around the edges and finding money in some contingency fund and getting some grant from some public agency and then finding some charity to donate some money and a couple of local businesses, and we roll that all up in a ball, and then we have like half a program. Somehow that we're all delighted that it's success, because the thing that was going to be cancelled or had been cancelled has been put back together with a postage stamp. And we see that happen again and again and again all across the school district in different areas. So that's not sustainable. I like the fact that Dr. Vargas has talked about that. The other thing I like about Dr. Vargas, and these things are important, that people's focus and aim and belief is set at the right place. And Dr. Vargas has said numerous times since he came to our district a little over a year ago now that there's no reason why Manchester can't have the best schools, can't have great schools, and can't have the best schools in the state of New Hampshire or even New England. He's also said, and correctly so, that our schools are hidden gems anyway. That he talks about the school, all the schools, but he's mentioned because I happen to have kids at Central, I hear it mentioned there, but that Central High School is one of the one of the great high schools, and it is, and it does, and it competes. It competes along with our other schools, but it competes as well as anybody does. Whether you compare it to the best of private schools or other public schools in the area. Academically, socially, etc., even in terms of sports. We shouldn't let tonight go without complimenting the young lady Robitaille who won the from West High School. I think she's a junior, but anyway, she won the New England cross-country race, set a course record up in Maine this past weekend. In doing so, congratulations to you! What a wonderful achievement for you personally, and for your school, for your coach, and for the school district. And we talked last week about Coach LeBurge with the boys' soccer team at Central getting to the state final and being pipped by a goal, and then the girls, Central High School girls' soccer team winning the state championship. And I have to tell you, the boys at Central High School, the boys' soccer team was named the number 8 best boys' soccer team in the country by USA Today 2 months ago. And the Central High School girls' state champion girls soccer team were named the number 20th best girls soccer team in the United States by USA Today. Now, sometimes those polls are sort of arbitrary, and and people might pick them in different ways, but that's still a great achievement for that program. And I waxed on it last week about how that was achieved despite cuts to our soccer program at the lower level. But again, when we look at the achievement of our students, and that achievement can be measured in many ways. We've got a student from Hillside who went out and won an Emmy. Or a Golden Globe. I think it was an Emmy a couple of years ago. We've had kids win kudos for acting and for writing music and singing and playing music. And there's a kid who wrote a piece of music, and I was amazed on social media the other day to hear a band playing a piece of music that was written by a junior in our high schools. And so Yeah, so there are great things happening, and they're doing great things, but we could do so much more with the right support and the right funding. I'm hoping that the incoming school board, one of my, I've reached out to some of them, and I sadly not all because but I would like to, and I hope they can leave their preconceived notions at the door. I'd be echoing what Phil said in his phone call. If I were talking to them, there's a couple of thoughts I'd have for them. One would be to get out of the way and let the superintendent do his job, and that their first job as public oversight is to be there as a board of directors, not managers, not an executive authority, but rather as advisors and oversight. I think that's important. I would also say to all of them, and if they're listening to this, please, guys and girls, I would say leave the preconceived ideas outside. And that's probably too great a thing to do. But I would say be dubious a little bit or question the opinions you have going in and see if you are, because perhaps you might find that it isn't actually as you believe it to be. Because there are some people in Manchester who are very mistaken in their worldview and are unreasonable actually, and step beyond reality sometimes in their in what they say about and think about our public schools. And so I think that people should, that those people coming in would be pay attention, be ready to work, and let's there's no time to waste. It's only 24 months, but. So yes, be ready to work, but also not be wrapped up in sort of ideology, etc. There are great things happening in the public schools, and so your job is to encourage those and to see that more happens. And the people who want to tear down the edifice, and the ones who've been telling you before you were elected that our schools are in need of complete realignment, etc. It just ain't so. And what most people find, and even when we've brought people in from outside and they've done surveys on our schools and stuff like that, and the most recent survey that we had done, or whatever the word is for it, examination of our school district, the first finding of that group of experts was that everybody in the Manchester School District is working hard. That there are no people coasting along. That everybody, teachers, administrators, principals, etc. That everybody is working hard, and many are working too hard. And so that is not where the problem is. And you'll find that most people are well-intentioned, and so start from there and then reach some commonality. And if people could check the personalities at the door and get, there's no room for ideology, etc., or grudges or etc. Let's move on and judge people by what they do, starting on January 1st, and what they do as a body of work. And just like the school board should be judging the superintendent on what he achieves based on they allowing him through his work. Equally, we the people can be judging the school board based on how they behave, and using our right at the ballot box to impose our will on them if they're not working properly. And then lastly, with regard to all of that, I do if I were to meet Joyce Craig in the coming months between now and the time she chairs her first meeting, I'll be advocating for her to have a deep think about how these meetings are managed, and to do some fundamental changes about the agenda and the way the agenda is managed, and about moving from discussion and debate into the voting mode, and voting and moving on from there. And hopefully doing it without being dictatorial or dogmatic or stifling people's sense that they're having their voice heard. I think actually the quieter people on those boards probably feel that their voices are less well heard, because the couple of people on the board, the 2 or 3 or 4 who like to be heard the most, end up having the majority of the say, whereas somebody who doesn't want to ramble on for an hour and a half at every meeting finds themselves finds themselves not having the same voice. And then equally, the people who have not done their homework and come into a school board meeting and they haven't looked at the agenda, they haven't looked at their paperwork. When I hear inane questions being asked of the superintendent during school board meetings, I find it particularly galling and annoying. You know, if it's a question that you could have sent an email about any day for the last 6 months, why are you wasting everybody's time on a Monday or Tuesday night asking this silly question? You know, do we still use a cap and gown for graduation? What colour are the cap and gown at West High School for graduation? When I hear those questions, I frankly despair of going anywhere. So hopefully we can move to a new day, and the elections are over. Let's get to work. Our students need it. Our schools need it, our parents need it, and our city needs it. We have a great opportunity in front of us. Let's come up with grab the ball and start running up the field. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great week. I look forward to seeing you next week as everybody gets prepared for Thanksgiving. See you all soon, and thank you for spending this evening, an hour with us this evening. All the best. Bye-bye now.